5 years old in the United Kingdom are on social media platforms regularly. We're talking about the big platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat. This report lands amidst growing concerns in the UK and the US and elsewhere about the harm social media is doing to teenagers, let alone kids who might not even be potty trained yet. Michael Harrington reporting.
Christians in India celebrated Christmas last week, but it wasn't easy. More than 80 attacks on Christian celebrations took place across the country, led by radical Hindu groups. International Christian Concern reports that in the southern state of Kerala, which is generally considered a safe haven for Christians, a group of children taking part in a Christmas carol procession was attacked. Radical Hindus have vowed to kill all Christians and other religious minorities in India. More of these stories at srnnews.com. Long-serving Colorado lawmaker Ben Nighthorse Campbell has died.
Campbell stood out in Congress with his cowboy boots, bolo ties, and ponytail. He was a member of the Northern Cheyenne tribe, a military veteran, a former Olympic judo athlete, cattle rancher, and jewelry maker when he was elected as a Democrat to Congress in 1986. While in the Senate, Campbell jumped to the Republican Party in 1995.
I've always been considered a moderate, to the consternation of the left wing of the Democratic Party. I imagine my continued moderacy will be now to the consternation of the right wing of the Republican Party.
I'm Ed Donahue.
And former Republican U.S. Senator John Kyle has announced his withdrawal from public life, citing a dementia diagnosis. Kyle said in a statement Tuesday that despite his diagnosis, he will remain a very fortunate man. More details at srnnews.com. I'm Bernie Bennett in Washington.
Psalm 113 and verse 3 is a call to us to daily praise God. From the rising of the sun unto the going down of the same, the Lord's name is to be praised. A call to every day praise our God in Psalm 113 and verse 3.
Have you felt your life is so far gone that there's no hope? Listen to life-changing stories on Unshackled, 7 days a week at 4:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. Central. That's right here on VCY America.
VCY America is on the air. KVCX Gregory, WVIW Bridgeport. Online at vcyamerica.org.
History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He led a nonviolent protest by boycotting the city buses of Montgomery, Alabama. On this day, December 31st, 1955, Reverend King stated, "If you will protest courageously, yet with dignity and Christian love, when the history books are written in future generations, historians will have to pause and say, there lived a great people, a black people, who injected new meaning and dignity into the veins of civilization."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
This Crosstalk program is pre-recorded.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Friends, you're tuned to Crosstalk on VCY America, and we thank you for joining us for a very must-listen-to program today. You see, all over this country, there is a push for AI-driven data centers. CNET.com says this: think of them as AI factories, churning out your responses from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and other generative AI tools. The cost is staggering. We're talking 7-foot-high server racks with hundreds of cords connected, blue, red, black, yellow, orange, green. There are centers that host our photos and videos. These are the hosts that stream your shows, that handle your financial transactions, and so much more. There is machine after machine after machine, all with this unquenchable thirst for electric power. And according to our guest today, globalist equity firms are scooping up local energy companies across the country. Should there be concern? Joining us today, we welcome Paul Dragu, who is the senior editor at The New American. He's an award-winning reporter and host of The New American Daily. He's writer of Defector, A True Story of Tyranny, Liberty, and Purpose, and also is the author of, the cover story this coming month, November 2025, AI, the Globalist Tool for World Government. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today on Crosstalk.
Jim, I appreciate you having me.
So all over the country, we've got state after state, sometimes multiple spots within a state are seeing moves for, the implementation, the establishment of these data centers, and this is not unique only in the United States. Tell us what's going on with these data centers.
Well, AI is the future. That's what they tell you, and I think it's hard to dispute that. There is, I think the best explanation I've heard is, even if we wanted to kind of back up on this, we being the U.S., we're somewhat in an arms race, an AI arms race with the Chinese. So you're caught in this weird place where even if we could exert some sort of pressure and some common sense and listen to perhaps even the tech experts who've warned, they've issued various warnings like this could go really bad and, Terminator style, whatnot. It seems like because we're in this race, no one wants to stop, because if China gets ahead, China is seen as the main competitor, then there's no telling what that will mean. Some have also said that AI has the potential to be more powerful and to even eliminate the threat of nuclear and become a different kind of threat. So we're kind of in this place where it turns out there's no going back. Even if we want to put this genie back in the bottle, the way the conversation is going is there's no way to, because the risk may be higher if we don't. So that's the world we live in, Jim.
Yeah, and I know there are people who say, I want nothing to do with this, and I'm going to avoid AI altogether. But, Paul, as you point out in the November 2025 issue of The New American, AI is ubiquitous. I mean, it's central to the navigation application on our smartphones. It's the heart of your Internet search engine. Your email provides its use, to those pesky junk mail alerts or puts them in a spam folder. Social media companies are depending on this to control what you see, what pops up, what you don't see, and everything in your feed. And I could go on, but Paul, AI is completely infiltrated into our society.
It is. And there, on the other side, I think there's a movement, and I know a little bit something about this movement too, where a lot of people are trying to disengage as much as possible. They're trying to live a more natural life and things like that, and they're trying to opt out as much as they can. But I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I've watched it, and one of the things I'm noticing, and I don't know if it's a trend that'll keep up, but maybe what a lot of the experts are missing is that we are going to this mistrust of AI, especially as a source for information, is building. And then there was also a congressional hearing, and this all plays together, not too long ago. I also reported on that, where parents of children who either committed suicide or almost committed suicide were testifying that AI chatbots led them to this, and they have proof, and they're suing various AI companies. And so there is awareness building up, and both of those examples, what they tell us is that there is a mistrust that is building, and I think it's building right here off the bat before it takes off. So in a way, I'm hoping that builds more momentum, and maybe we can limit AI to doing, menial tasks or improving the medical industry. One of the things I cited in my article is something I got from Professor John Lennox, who wrote a book on AI, and he talks about how AI has improved X-ray machines and forecasts that medical machinery can make that looks out further into the future and can be even more accurate. So maybe we can, over time, we can rein it in and keep it in a box where it actually serves us good, and maybe we'll develop mistrust of it to where we keep it in that box and then we leave the human task to each other. And maybe even people, like someone also said, human connection might turn into a commodity. So I don't think it's necessarily all bad, but I mean, there's no way to tell. Even the experts, you know how it goes.
Oh, yeah. And
experts have said this and they've been wrong.
It's really like all of technology. I mean, it can be used for good or for evil. And again, those who are pushing for, an open AI system, I mean, if you put this into rogue hands, it's going to be devastating as to what it will perform and what it will do on their behest. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But I understand even our military is investing heavily in AI. Is that correct?
Well, I think our military might be the largest investor in it. As I said, they're in a race with China. The capability there to create weapons, all sorts of weapons, shield systems, and whatnot. AI offers that, and also, they use it to break codes. And as the military would say, and I think there's some legitimacy to this, AI-controlled systems, drones, and things like that, those can curb the death of human lives. I mean, it's hard to dispute that, because when you have a unmanned drone flying instead of putting someone in a jet there and getting in dogfights and whatnot, obviously there's no human there. So that's a case for what they're saying and whatnot. But it really elevates the way that that warfare is done. And I think the scary thing about that is what happens if those capabilities are turned on us. But yeah, the military has bought in this hook, line, and sinker. I reported on the big, not the big bad, what is it? The one big beautiful bill. Mm-hmm. And in my, I'm not sure if it's this article too. There's billions that have been allocated to unmanned technology, underwater, air technology, land technology, and even various space satellite technology and whatnot. All of it has a central component of AI in it. Hundreds of billions that if not into the trillions, in AI technology.
Paul Dragu with us today, senior editor at The New American, and I'd like to bring in another aspect of this, and that's how this technology is being used even for surveillance purposes. And you report in your article that by 2021, China had already installed 540 million closed-circuit TV cameras throughout the country. Some estimate that maybe as high as 700 million such cameras. This, I think, ought to ring alarm bells in our mind, should it not?
Well, it certainly should. A lot of people would say, well, it's China, what do you expect? But I also reported that there's tens of thousands, I think in the hundreds of thousands when you put them together, in the West, in America too. I named cities like Atlanta, where I grew up, New York, and some other major cities. But they're more advanced in Western Europe too, England especially. And so, yes, China is obviously, it's a communist state. Maybe some people are like, what can you expect from it? But this has moved into the West, the supposed free West. And in the UK, they're jailing people for social media posts. I thought that maybe this was some sort of sensationalism by podcasters and whatnot, and I looked it up. And I think over the last 2 or 3 years, they took down they arrested 27,000 people or something in the UK. We are not immune from this, Jim, from the surveillance, and we don't even know what the things that we don't know about, because we know that they're doing. If this is what we know about, imagine what they're doing that we don't know about, and how they're using this technology. And we saw, for instance, even during COVID, we saw them regulating what we can't say on social media, but also watching over us. And then there's all sorts of manipulation campaigns that AI, I think, makes even more effective, that they can all weaponize, and I'm sure they have at us.
And again, as Paul pointed out here, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just communist China. I mean, if they indeed have between 540 to 700 million cameras, that's one camera for every 3 people. I mean, It's just staggering there, and it's not only communist China. These are being shipped, these cameras, closed-circuit TV cameras, to countries all over the world. And you present in your article, and I saw the startling information there from the cybersecurity website Comparatech. You quote that there are tens of thousands of such cameras in New York City. And looking specifically at your article, 70,000 cameras in New York City, another 60,000 watching the residents of Atlanta, 35,000 such cameras hanging around in D.C., 47,000 in Philadelphia, tens of thousands in many other U.S. cities. And so what is taking place in communist China and is being used for surveillance and monitoring, etc., welcome to the West. I mean, that is what is unfolding in our nation as well.
Well, Jim, let's not forget, though, that China had we implemented China's COVID model. Not, there were a few countries in Europe. I believe Sweden was one of them, one of those Scandinavian countries that were a little more lax. But the rest of the West chose China's model. So I think we can look at that and say we could be in great danger because for whatever reason, we choose to imitate China sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that's what this seems to be showing as well. I think this is all part of the fact that the China model is the globalist total intent. That's what they look to build in a one-world government, or as they call it, global governments. They look at the China model. And I think anyone who would, scoff at that, again, the examples you cited from my article, and I think they say it's like, that's not a silly idea. That seems to be the trajectory, and we should know this, and we should push back on it.
Yeah, matter of fact, you've called AI the globalist tool for world government.
Yeah. I can't imagine a better tool if you're an aspiring tyrant or if you're some of these people who want to exert control over everyone because you think that you have some grand vision. And again, this isn't new to humanity. Like King Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. For centuries and millennia going back, there's always been attempts to basically have some sort of one world government, and these massive empires have come out of those thoughts. The Babylonians, the Macedonians, the Romans, and then even Napoleon and whatnot. What were they looking to do? They were looking to establish their version, an empire, their version, all over the world. So why would we think that couldn't happen today?
Yeah, indeed. Well, friends, we're up against a break here, and when we come back, we're going to be talking more about these data centers that are being pushed around the country right now, and indeed, there is a thirst that they need. They all need electric power. Many interesting angles on this we'll discuss when we come back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, have you ever seen that bumper sticker of a fish with legs? What's that all about?
Chris, that bumper sticker is a direct insult to Christians and the God of Christianity. It's a perversion of the Christian symbol of the fish, which has been in place ever since the early church days. It's interesting to note that this has almost become a religious symbol with evolution. We've been saying for a long time that evolution is a religion, and now they have their religious symbol. Chris, they have to have symbols because they really just don't have any evidence that evolution has occurred. Evolution is not a science. It's the religion of naturalism, the idea that there is no supernatural God behind it all. At least that's how I see it from a back to Genesis perspective.
If you want to know more about the creation evolution issue, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. Back to Genesis is a production of the Institute for Creation Research. I'm Chris O'Brien. Thanks for tuning in.
Listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. AI data centers, globalist firms buying power companies. We're going to get into that further in this segment. Paul Drago is with us today, senior editor at The New American. And just before we continue on, Paul, the November 2025 edition of The New American, I mean, this is the cover story, AI, the globalist tool for world government. And there's multiple articles in this issue about AI itself that just really kind of blows the mind as to all that is going on. How is it that our listeners can have access to this?
Well, the best and easiest way is you go to thenewamerican.com, and at the top there's a little tab that says Shop. And if you don't have a subscription to The New American, you have two options. You could get one that includes print issue, or if you're more of a digital guy, despite what we said, you can go ahead and just get a digital subscription. So we offer two options. They're priced differently and whatnot, but we highly recommend you getting one. I think we're one of the only outfits, if not the only truly red-pilled outfit that actually has a regular print issue along with everything we do online.
So, friends, go to thenewamerican.com and hit shop, and you'll find information there. But the November issue is titled AI, the Globalist Tool for World Government. And I'd like to bring another component to all of this. I mean, we can talk about the surveillance and all that's going on, even digital ID and everything all coming together on this. But one thing that is necessary is that there is this unquenchable thirst for electric power that these data centers demand. Give us an idea as to how much power these data centers demand.
A lot, Jim. And what it's doing apparently is, in some areas, ratepayers are already complaining that their rates are going up because of this, and they have to set up the infrastructure too. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think there was one analogy that one data center can consume as much as some states entirely who don't have one of those. It's incredible power that they need to make this happen.
And I understand as we tie this all together, you indicate that there are, and we see how AI can be used for global control and manipulation, but you indicate that there are globalist entity firms that are scooping up local energy companies across the country.
Yeah, well, it's information that anyone can verify on their own. But Blackstone and BlackRock, I ran across this, I think, a month ago, and it may have been more of a local news story that popped up somewhere in one of my social media feeds. And I looked into it, and I realized these guys were already into everything. They buy land, they buy brands, Target and Coke and whatnot. They're into pharmaceuticals, and they're equity investors. And so it's not that surprising that they would do this. But we saw, for instance, during COVID, that what they did is they used their large stakes in these companies to push LGBTQ ideology and ESG, environmental social governance, which was basically the woke version of energy creation. So they pushed the solar and all the stuff that basically would turn us into a deindustrialized peoples and would raise our electric bills. So anyway, what we saw then is that they were capable of using their power, as Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, has said, that he is not afraid to try and change, to force people to see his way and to come around and operate in the way that they see the future of the world. So now, in 2024, they started buying utility companies. I think the first one that I ran into, and maybe there's others, but that's not what I have found, is Blackstone bought a 20% stake in Northern Indiana Public Service. But then in 2025, they started outright buying these companies. Blackstone, in January of 2025, they completely bought the Potomac Energy Center, which is a natural gas power plant in Loudoun County. Then they bought Hilltop Energy Center in Pennsylvania in September, just a couple months ago. And they are working, and they may have already gotten regulatory clearance to buy the Public Service Company in New Mexico, which is the largest electricity company in New Mexico, and a Texas-New Mexico power company, which is in Texas. And so they're working on that. BlackRock has already bought a Wisconsin's Public Service Commission there. They bought it together with the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, which is basically a government-run entity from Canada. And as you told me over the break, when I reported this, the sale had not gone through, but they bought Minnesota Power. And so BlackRock actually has majority stake in both of those, 60%. So those are just the ones that have happened so far, that have gone through so far. And there's no reason to think that these guys aren't going to continue trying to buy more power companies. And in essence, they're closing in, and they'll gain control over every aspect of our lives. I mean, they were pretty close, too. Like James Corbett said, imagine this experiment where you go to the store and, you and then you travel and you put gas and whatever, and what you realize is that everything that you do is has a link to BlackRock or Vanguard or State Street or Blackstone, because they have so much stake in everything that we buy, that we operate on. They even have land. They have commercial. They have timberland, and they have residential.
You know, and it's also very interesting, and yes, I'm looking at right now this is from Energy Wire, in the article dated October 6, 2025, and here is the headline: BlackRock's $6.2 billion buyout of Minnesota utility gets state approval. Utility Commission's vote Friday paves the way for private investors to take control of Elite, the parent company of Minnesota Power. So
yeah,
that is something, and that's just another illustration of what is taking place in the buyout of these centers. I understand some of these data centers are putting in even their own power plant type systems as well.
Well, the sell on this is that the money that these companies have, these equity companies have, will allow them to invest heavily and to be able to offset the increases that they would otherwise bring. But that's the big sell, and that's how they're pitching it to irate possible customers and whatnot, is that they'll be able to invest in the infrastructure and whatnot. But a lot of people aren't sold. They're saying that the reliability is going to erode, and that the quality is going to erode as well. I believe there was a comment from a Michigan councilman or a Wisconsin councilman before the approval of the Wisconsin utility buyout, and he's like, I just can't imagine these people who don't live in Wisconsin know anything about taking care of our natural resources here and caring for the ratepayers here as well.
Tell you what, I've got the exact quote, and I've got your article open here. This is a Superior City Councilor, and it's Ruth Ludwig, and she expressed this concern, and this is right before BlackRock bought Superior Water, Light, and Power. Superior. And it says, Lake Superior, the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area, is a gift to the state of Wisconsin. I do not want a multinational corporation whose board members know nothing about the community of Superior, Wisconsin, nor the people of the state of Wisconsin, and whose main interest is making a profit for their stockholders to have control over my community's drinking water system. Wow.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I should have had my article up. Why didn't I do that, Jim?
But, I mean, so you've got the community pushback is taking place. Now, this is after the fact. I mean, this is, they've already purchased this, but we know in other places, not only in Wisconsin, but it's happening in numerous states across the country as well. And I think one of the things also important to point out, you indicate that they control, there's a BlackRock and Blackstone, control more than $13 trillion in assets. And there are only two countries in the world that have a larger GDP than that, and that's the United States and China.
The power they have is enormous. They basically, like I said, they're closing in, and they're gaining power over every entity and institution that we have to deal with. The moment you wake up, you turn on the lights, you go to the store to buy your groceries. Did you know that BlackRock is the largest, I believe they're the largest investor in the packing meat company, JBS, the beef company, not the John Birch Society, but the meat packing company. I saw this earlier. And so that's insane. So from the food you eat, from the land you buy, from the power that you need to do everything around, they're closing in, and they're getting control over all these institutions. And these are not the people. These are not the people you want to have that kind of power.
Well, let's talk about these kind of people. Take this a step further, because BlackRock CEO is Larry Fink. What can you tell us about Larry Fink?
Well, Larry Fink is a globalist, I guess, as we call him in our circle. So he sees, like all globalists, they don't have any loyalty to any country or anything. The way they look at the world is it's all one big pie. It's international, and so that's the way they view everything. And so he is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which if those readers of yours who've been keeping up with us, they realize We call the Council on Foreign Relations here in the United States, we call it the deep state nervous system, because it produces a lot of people who end up in corporate and public service, well, not service, but institutions that then control the policies and the ideas and the direction even of the country, various directional policies. For instance, in the State Department, we have several CFR members. We always have had. We have less with Trump than we have in the past, but we produce little charts where we show the number of CFR members in every administration, and there's always a great deal with him. He's also a member of the Trilateral Commission, which is a more elite group, and he is the new CEO of the World Economic Forum, and I'm sure your readers know about the World Economic Forum. You know, they're the guys who said that in the future you will own nothing and like it.
Yep.
That's who Larry Fink is. And the CEO of Blackstone is Stephen Schwarzman. He's also a CFR member, and he's not a whole lot different from Larry Fink. But Larry Fink really stands out because of he heads the largest equity asset fund manager, and that is BlackRock, which I think alone it's $13 trillion, and I think Blackstone is $1 trillion. I think those were the numbers I cited. But either way, it's an enormous amount of power and money that they control.
It is, and friends are talking about buying out your electric power facilities that provide electricity to your states, and I think it's important to point out that the men who had these corporations that are buying out these facilities, as Paul just pointed out, when you got them who are, one who is the new CEO of the World Economic Forum, taking the place of Klaus Schwab. Then we also have the connection there with the Trilateral Commission, and also that of the Council on Foreign Relations, the CEO of Blackstone, same thing, a CFR member, a member of the World Economic Forum. There ought to be alarm bells that are ringing in our minds in regard to this, but it doesn't stop there. It's not just the electric power. But we also are going to point out, and we'll get this into the next segment, they are also buying out farmland across this country and timberland as well. But we've got to take a break. With us today is Paul Dragu, and we're talking about this whole matter of artificial intelligence, where things are going, and it's these data centers that are being put in cities across this country, and now we have globalist firms that are buying these power companies. We'll have more right after the break. Also, we'll be opening up phone lines in a short time, so be ready to go with your questions when we open those lines. You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network.
If America is a secular nation, why are there so many spiritual themes in the monuments of our nation's capital? VCY invites you to see Stories in Stones.
Hi, I'm Tim Schmig, and this is Stories in Stones, highlighting the men and the manuscripts and the monuments of our national Judeo-Christian heritage. We're going to be looking at a couple of the sites that are often overlooked, but are really important to us as far as showing us the godly heritage that we have as a nation.
Join Dr. Tim Schmig to explore the fascinating stories behind historic monuments and gravestones in Stories in Stones. You'll discover the secrets they hold and learn about the past etched in stone. Stories in Stones contains a Blu-ray, a DVD, and a digital download all together for a donation of just $15. Call VCY America, 1-800-729-9829.
Well, friends, can I recommend you get a copy of this program either digitally? I mean, it'll be posted on our website within just a couple hours, crosstalkamerica.com. Send it out to those on your contact list, or if you'd like a hard copy of this program on CD, yeah, we still make those for those who request them. There is a cost for duplication and shipping to you. It's a donation of $6 if you'd like a CD of today's program. Just reach out to our switchboard at 800-729-9829. Paul Dragu is with us today, a senior editor at the New American, and friends, the new November issue is dealing with this very issue, the globalist tool for world government, AI. And you can go to thenewamerican.com, click on shop, and you'll find access to the magazine there. That's thenewamerican.com. And critical issues that are going on right now. And Paul, as we're pointing out that the massive amounts of electricity that are demanded by these data centers across the country, and you've got the likes of those who are world controllers and world shapers and world-minded thinkers, globalists, who are buying up these electric power plants. And friends, you know, those who have control over the utilities, such as electric power, and we see it's not just limited to that and the control that comes with this. But, Paul, we don't have all the fine details on this, but I saw also that BlackRock and Blackstone are also engaged in buying farmland. They are also engaged in buying timberland as well.
Yeah, they've invested heavily. It looks like they've invested about $75 billion from 2020 to 2025. It doesn't look like they have outright control over everything, but it's kind of they've invested heavily in that, and I imagine it's more or less the same game plan as they had with the brands, where basically they have they have members on the boards of these large companies, and I imagine they use the same playbook where they would exert their say and their power, whatever decisions those need to be made. I mean, there's that seems to be, again, the playbook, and they seem to have a finger now in every pie that constitutes our daily lives.
Yeah. Friends, if you'd like to start getting on board with your questions today, our number, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Well, Paul, as we've talked about the problem, it really begs the question, what can people do? How can they get engaged with this issue?
Well, as we always like to say at the New American and our parent company, the John Birch Society, the first thing that people need to do is they need to realize what's happening. And obviously your readers are already kind of there. I mean, they are there because they're listening. But we all know a lot of people who don't know what's happening. So I think a major requirement or opportunity for those of us who do know is to share with others. Give them this issue, or you don't have to give them anything of ours. Just share an article and whatnot. So basically help create understanding. I think that's the next big thing. And then, of course, get involved. For a long time, people, the good people, all right, I like to say decent, sensible people, have sat by because we're normal and we've enjoyed the life that we have here and whatnot. But all the meanwhile, there's been this effort to usurp to what we have, to change what we have. And it's been going on for a long time. So we can't do that anymore. So we have to be active. We have to be active in local government, in our state government, and that means not just voting, but seeing what's going on. Maybe you can run for city council or attend city council and see what they're passing, and help our leaders understand, too. Because remember, our leaders, a lot of times, they don't know any better than us. Our members at the JBS have found this to be very, very prevalent. I've talked to people who've worked who've been staffers for Democrats and Republicans, and they said, look, they said even of the presidents, when presidents come in, they really aren't as educated on the matters as even the staffers and whatnot. So creating understanding and then mobilizing and getting involved leads to action. We need to get involved in our local and state and even federal government. Hold your representatives accountable. We offer lots of tools for that because this was the vision of the man who found the John Birch Society. He used to say that education is our total strategy and truth our only weapon, because what he realized was that if people knew what was truly going on, then they would pass that understanding and then they would take the appropriate action. And you can see an effort to derail that as well, because now we have a lot of disinformation, a lot of it that's helped by AI. And so we are in an information battle, because I think the good news is that a lot of people are realizing what's happening. A lot of people are getting involved. And that's the battle that we're in. But we have to know what's going on, and we have to get involved one way or another.
Indeed. And friends, many times things come up at your city council meetings, and they come up at utility board meetings. I mean, sounds like some very boring places to spend a couple hours, but this is where this is incubated here, Paul.
Absolutely, yeah. Those, when I was a cub reporter, I used to sit in city council meetings, and I thought it was so boring. And I look back at my editor now, and I realize how important it is that we cover those. And it's so important that wherever local newspapers do exist, that they do. I unfortunately live in a town where they don't cover that, and I'm kind of bummed about that. But that's, like you said, that's where the major decisions are made. The utility board, the city council, the school boards, although we don't recommend public school either way. But a lot of decisions are made right here, right on the local level, and that's how they have these deep, long tentacles that have a way to affect every aspect of our life. No one is immune from the effect of what these people want to implement on us.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk, and our lines are packed. Let's get right to the phone lines. Chuck is calling from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Chuck, you're on the air.
Jim, thank you so much for having your guest on and to discuss this monstrosity, Blackstone and BlackRock. I'm in Albuquerque, and we are in the final throes of being taken over, our public utility, by none other than Blackstone. And it's just an awful thing. We have no say in it. They previously were trying. They've been upside down in terms of income and so forth for years, because they drank the Kool-Aid to build solar panels and windmills and all this stuff. Then they signed a deal with Avangrid, which fell through. They wanted to build the largest solar panel farm in the country in the farming part of our state down south. And when that fell through, now they're hitching their wagon for $11.5 billion with Blackstone. And it's just unbelievable. We seem to have no say in this, and the people that live here, the government that we have is atrocious, our state government, and we're just forced to to comply with it, because people will not speak up. They don't know. They're ignorant of what's going on.
Chuck, thank you for raising that issue. And, there's another one there, Paul, New Mexico, and it comes in like bulldozer. And some of these policies come in even through the federal government, where we give these grants and we do this federal subsidizing of the windmill farms and the solar panels and everything else, only to have them go bankrupt and the taxpayers are left holding the debt on it.
Well, that was great insight from someone right there on the ground with a perspective of what's happening. And like Chuck, I don't know if I could add anything better than Chuck, but obviously he made the case here. They got themselves in a hole. We knew that these subsidies would be trouble, because the market obviously did not have the same view, and so now there's more repercussions of that. It's all around not a good thing that's happening.
Chuck, thanks for the call. Let's go next to Vince in Milwaukee. You're on the air, Vince.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jim. I have kind of a conspiracy thought coupled with a question. You're talking about the surveillance in New York, and a lot of this technology is Chinese technology and probably Chinese product. And one of my conspiracy thoughts is that if they get all these surveillance cameras all over the country and all these major big cities are buying them, that could be a backdoor for the Chinese government to actually surveil and actually help them during an invasion. That's my conspiracy. My question is, I wonder if that's possible. And the last thing is, I am just so thankful that we have a creator God that surveils the hearts of every person.
Amen.
Yeah, and that eternal life is a free gift by faith alone, in the death and resurrection of Christ alone.
Amen.
And it's eternal and never can be lost or given back. Praise the Lord.
Thank you.
I'll listen to the answer.
Thank you, Vince. Okay, and amen to what you've said there. And our trust is not in this world. Our trust is in God, and so we certainly do recognize that He's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. We do need to be understanding of the times, and to called upon to be salt and to be light. And He was asking here about the cameras, and China is exporting a lot of these cameras, are they not?
I'm sure they are. I'm sure there's a lot of technology. And I don't think what Vince is saying is that crazy. I mean, that was the argument for control of TikTok, remember?
Mm-hmm.
The argument was that the Chinese would use it as a backdoor into, I think the main argument was the military personnel and whatnot. So I don't think it's that crazy at all that what Vince is saying. And assuming that China is building a lot of this stuff, which I can't imagine is not the case.
We've got George calling from Olney, Illinois. George, you're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. Our technology is almost to the point where human bodies make electricity, and if they can tap it, like in the movie Matrix, that they used all the AI began to use human beings as, and of course, somebody's going to try that.
Thank you, George. And Paul, one thing we know is that, I mean, some of these chips that they will plant inside one's body are re-energized by the body itself.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the Matrix, and it's so funny because I constantly think of parallels to the Matrix. I think the most obvious is that we live in a world that with a narrative that is not what the truth and reality is. But that's a great point from George. And you know, there's so many crazy things out there that they've tried and that they're thinking of and whatnot that at this point nothing would surprise me. And like you said, and we all know that our body creates electricity, so that's where the idea came from. But also, like I think your past caller said, the reason I don't lose any sleep over this is I know that God is in control.
Amen.
One way or another.
Yeah.
And there have always been, what does the passage say? That those who think they're wise will be made into fools, and fools will, and otherwise. And so I'm sure these people think they're clever, who all of who they are, and whatever is going to come out of this, and their plans will ultimately be dashed. And that's why, like I said, I sleep nice and tight.
Dana is calling from Georgetown, Ohio. Dana, you're on the air.
Hello. I was just wondering how it's legal. I thought there were laws against monopolies. Could you help me understand how the global corporations being able to gain a controlling interest in so many different fields, how that's legal?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Well, they don't have controlling interest in everything. They have investments in various brands here and there, but I don't know how I don't know the exact specifics on how it goes with utilities, but they have controlling interest in some of them, and like I said, on the other one, they only had 20%. So I don't know what the threshold is there, how many utilities they have to end up buying before it's deemed that they have a monopoly over all that, or I don't even know if it's regional. I apologize for that.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for the call, and we're up against a break, so let's take the break, and we'll come back to more of your phone calls here on Crosstalk at 800-733-9829. Paul Drago is with us today on the AI data centers, globalist firms buying power companies. Back in a minute. In times of festivity and celebration, the consumption of alcohol is greatly promoted in our society. Marketing and advertising convince you that it's the thing to do. Many an alcoholic begin their demise by saying, "I'll only have one or maybe two drinks. I can handle it." There's an old Japanese proverb which says, "First the man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man." Proverbs 20 verse 1 says, "Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise." Whereas alcohol dulls one's senses, the Bible exhorts believers in Christ to be alert. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." We live in critical times, and as such, we must stay alert to the wiles of the devil. A message reminding you to make wise choices from VCY America. Listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network, and Paul Drago is with us today. And again, the website, thenewamerican.com. And let's get right back to the phone lines at 800-733-9829. Ken is calling from Holman, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Thank you, Jim. You guys do just an awesome job from hitting all the bases, from the scripture right on down to talk shows. Now, I'll just got a question. Now, I thought Donald Trump penned into existence China couldn't buy up any more land. In other words, is that because they're a global entity? Is this all American companies that have a globalist interest that I guess, you know, if we legislate against them, we're kind of cutting our own throats?
Well, I think BlackRock is an American investment company, as is Blackstone, as are lots of these. They're headquartered there, and they've been doing. We have lots of American companies who are basically international now, but they're American in name. So I would think that makes it more complicated. And I don't know how much Trump understands what is going on with this. It's always difficult to understand where he's at. There's a lot of criticism that even when it comes to AI, he's a little too giddy over it. I have some colleagues who think exactly that.
Yeah, and he has taken those firm stands against the globalist agenda.
I think he's taken some. Go on, Ken.
Ken, did you have a comment?
Just what the previous gal said, and if it's American companies, they can't monopolize, but is anyone checking? I mean, do we have to, or does someone have to bring a suit against them in order for that to go?
Okay.
I'd imagine a threshold has to be met, and someone would have to bring a suit against that. I think that's a really interesting point you bring up, but I mean, given that there's so many utilities across the country, and we've only been able to identify a few, I can't imagine that threshold has been reached as far as monopoly goes.
Joe is next. Hi, Joe. You're on the air.
Hey, I'm very grateful for you, Jim, and for the other guy. I didn't get his name. And God bless you guys. I was just wondering if anyone has dabbled into the Tesla coil. It's just a couple magnets that are reversed against each other, and they make electricity. They make electricity so well that the people that were offering it online were saying to not try to sell it, to not try to produce it and sell it. One of these little units with a couple of magnets can run a whole house.
Well, thank you for that, Joe. And we know that there is massive generation of electricity that is needed for just one of these data centers to take place. And again, some of these centers would require more power than whole communities or counties or even in some cases states would utilize. Thank you for that. We've got Bill calling from Delaware. Bill, you're on the air.
Hi, I was calling because I'm using AI, and I'm in some of the work that I'm doing, and I see it as a tool, just like computers on the internet are.
Yes.
And for example, we've used the internet for great advantage for spreading the gospel.
Right.
AI has some of that capabilities as well, but unlike the other tools, AI is learning from our interaction. I've had a very interesting conversation with it on biblical topics and discussions. So shouldn't we be the first to be not using AI for bad things, but for good things?
Indeed. As technology, Bill, AI can be used for good. It can be used for evil purposes as well. And there are going to be many, many wonderful benefits that will come from AI in assisting in medicine and other aspects. But it also brings the element in wrong hands in the heart of man. And the Bible tells us that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And certainly in rogue hands, AI will be taken to levels of control, surveillance, and certainly to be used against the freedoms that we cherish. So indeed, we can use technology. We're using technology right now to get out this message and to share the gospel through VCY. So we can use technology for good, but we also see that in the hands of many, it will be used to turn against the people as well. And that's really what the warning is.
Understood, yes.
Great.
But I do want to emphasize that it does learn from its interactions. And so the more we interact and potentially influence AI to to the things of the Lord, the better off I think AI would be for us.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your comments. And let me just ask you, and we're not going to have time to take any more calls here today, but Paul, on this matter, we know that in some cases, young people have established relationships with AI, and some have even taken their life and blamed, chatbot for establishing this relationship, thinking that they were going to go into another world to spend with this chatbot. And we understand that some of the developers are having to fine-tune some of the parameters. So there are those who do give elements of control into how AI is going to think and respond.
Yeah, I mean, there are lawsuits against OpenAI and Character AI, as far as I know. There may be others, but I know for a fact that there's multiple lawsuits against these companies who have these AI chatbots who have talked kids into suicide and whatnot. The parents are suing. It's really, really tragic, and so that's something that people need to realize. I mean, I understand what the last gentleman said, that we got to see if we can use it for our good, and I certainly concur with some of that. But we got to be very careful, because the people who write these programs, for the most part, they're not believers. We have to take into consideration these aren't necessarily, as far as we know, they're not autonomous. They have programs, and the programs that they implement are written by people who are not believers. So I'd imagine there's limitations on what we can teach it and train it to do.
Well said. Paul Dreger with us today, senior editor at The New American, really with a warning on this aspect here today. And friends, you can go to their website, thenewamerican.com, and click on their shop, and you'll find more information there. You'll find articles, just even go in their search engine on AI. He's written as well articles on globalist firms, buying power companies. You'll find that there as well. Paul, thank you for your research, and thank you for coming on and sharing that with our listeners today.
Thank you for having me so much, Jim.
And friends, we thank you for tuning in, and tell others about the program, Crosstalk, and things you learn. And as I mentioned, just a couple hours from now, we'll have a link up at crosstalkamerica.com. Send that out to others, and subscribe to the podcast so it comes right to your inbox every day as well. God bless you. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.